Hi, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the Gabby Petito documentary. And this time I would like to talk about blame shifting or pointing the blame. So, whenever Brian and Gabby were pulled over, the cops, after they got each of their stories, met and they talked about what happened. Now, there was significant evidence that Gabby was being physically abused by Brian. In their initial reports, it said that they had seen Brian slap Gabby multiple times and then sort of try to drive off without her in the van. And there were marks on Gabby. There were also marks on Brian, but Gabby's were much more extensive. And they talked to each of them individually, and they came back. And when the cops were talking to each other and collaborating the stories, they said Gabby said that it was her fault, and Brian said that it was Gabby's fault. So they were both putting the blame on Gabby. And I want to talk about this for a little bit because I think it's really interesting. Gabby was very quick, despite the fact that she had marks on herself and people had seen Brian physically assault her. Outsiders had seen this and reported it. She was quick to say, it's not his fault. It's my OCD. It's my fault that I have these marks on me. So she was quick to defend him and to internalize the blame and say, no, it's my fault. Don't get mad at him. It's my fault. And victims often do this because there's so much at stake if it comes out to the public that they are in an abusive relationship, that they are quick to defend the abuser so that it's like, cops, anyone outside, please go away. Don't look any further here. You know, victims put up like this facade, and behind it, everything is really, really bad. But they put on this facade of like, nothing to see here. Please go look elsewhere. He's not to blame. She's not to blame, depending on who the aggressor is. And I did that as well. I did not take blame personally for the two times that my ex was arrested for assault and harassment, but I did try to cover from him. I told people stories whenever it came out in the paper the first time. I said that, it was a misunderstanding and that he had taken this prednisone or some sort of steroid for a cold and it made him act wonky, and the police falsely arrested him. And I even texted his friends and the people closest to him and said, what you see in the paper isn't true. He's not abusive. He didn't do anything wrong. That was the first time he assaulted me. And I always wondered deep down, like, if the tables were reversed and I had been the aggressor, would he have done that for me? And in the back of my head, I always thought, I don't think he would have. I just didn't think that he had that sort of loyalty to me. And I don't have to wonder about that anymore, because not only do I know he wouldn't have, I also know now that had the situation had he had the opportunity to, he would have blamed it on me. Not only would he have not defended me, if he could get away with blaming me for his own actions, he would. And how I know that is because the second time he was arrested for assault, he blamed me and said that I self-harmed, threw myself into a wall, broke my own collarbone, and gave myself a concussion. But what we see here with Gabby and her boyfriend is something kind of similar, where she's quick to defend him, even though it's pretty clear that he is the aggressor in this situation. I don't think there's any doubt in anyone's mind of that now. And Brian, rather than just being neutral or taking accountability for his actions, he blames Gabby. So he's doing the exact opposite. She's trying to take the blame off of him and just either take it on herself or just say it's not a big deal. Can we move on? He's blaming Abby. He's like, no, it's her fault. So he's lying and he's blame shifting, which is what narcissists do. They lie and they blame shift. Not only will they not take responsibility for their own actions, they will blame their victims if they any way, shape, or form possibly can. And at the end of that arrest, the cops labeled Brian the victim and Gabby the aggressor. He actually got put up for the night free of charge in a hotel designated for victims of domestic violence. So these dynamics, one, make it very difficult for police officers to determine who is the true aggressor and who is the victim, oftentimes. And two, it gives the narcissist a leg up, because the victim who doesn't have these sort of narcissistic traits isn't quick to point blame and may even try to protect this person because they love this person. The narcissist does not love the victim or care about the victim, so they have no qualms not only not taking responsibility for their own actions, but pointing the finger on their victim who they have just hurt and saying it's their fault.